Welcome to the Winning Edge Investments Podcast. Winning Edge Investments provides industry-leading horse racing and sports betting tips, ratings and education, enabling you to invest intelligently and treat your betting like a business. Go to www.winningedgeinvestments.com to learn more about how you can start to supercharge your betting bank immediately. Treat your betting like a business and invest intelligently with Winning Edge Investments.
Today we're joined by one of Sydney's newest and fast becoming one of the most successful trainers there, Annabel Neasham. G'day Annabelle, how are you?
Yeah, g'day Brad, good, thanks yourself.
Very well, thanks. Great to have you on the show. Firstly, let's get more Randwick Giddings out of the way. How'd you drown your sorrows after that?
You just have to move on, don't you? You can't sort of dwell on those things. I didn't think I'd be able to watch the replay, but I did watch it a couple of times just to check Tommy didn't need a spray. But there was not much he could do. It's just racing for you. It was just a wall of horses in front of him, so he's obviously had to hook wide and waste a lot of time doing so. But the horse was super to the line, so just got to take the positives out of the race. And the horse is flying. His last furlong was exceptional, and he's pulled up very well from the run, so we can look forwards now to heading towards the Rosehill Guineas.
Fantastic. We'll touch on him a bit more later, but now we've got that out of the way. Tell us about your background in racing and how you got into the game.
So I've always been mad about horses, and growing up I had ponies, and I was mainly doing eventing and show jumping, more the equestrian side, but I sort of then realised I wanted to make a career out of horses, but making a career in eventing and show jumping is pretty hard. There's not a lot of money. There's certainly no prize money, and I probably wasn't going to be a top level. I wasn't an elite sort of rider, so it wasn't really an option. So, a few people pushed me towards the bloodstock side of the racing industry. So I worked in that side of things. Worked for a couple of bloodstock agents back home and consigners. And I worked for the Queen as well. She's got her own private stud with about 25 mares. So I worked there at Sandringham at the Royal Studs and broke in some of her yearlings. One of which actually is out over here in Victor's Prince. So it's a bit of you realise how small a world it is when you both end up at Warwick Farm. Yeah. From Norfolk in England. But yeah, that's how I sort of got into it. And then I was riding out jumpers. Racehorses as well, and sort of was going down that route, and decided I probably wanted to train jumpers. The bloodstock wasn't really hands-on enough for me, but I came out to Australia really to get some experience. I thought I'd come to Australia for a year and then maybe America and then settle back home, but sort of 4 years on, I'm still here.
So you obviously love it in Australia?
Yeah, love it. Better weather, scarier insects. That's the only negative. Yep. And sharks. But
is that the worst one, the sharks?
Probably, yeah.
Do you ever see it when you're out in the water with the horses, or?
No, I don't. But they tell me Botany Bay is a breeding ground for bull sharks, so yep. It's always in the back of my mind. When I worked for Gay Waterhouse, they actually swim their horses. So you put your feet on their chest, and you're actually sort of facing the horse, and you steer them sort of with the bit. Yep. And then turn them around, and you sort of hold their tail coming back in. The guy that used to swim them, I think, had pneumonia, so I ended up having to swim once, and I was terrified. I don't know if the horse was more scared or if I was, but yeah, the thought of a shark coming underneath me was not ideal for an English girl.
Hopefully the sight of a horse wouldn't be too inviting for a shark. Or at least
no, they'd probably go for the horse before me, I suppose.
Yeah, which isn't.
Not sure if that's a good thing either.
So you obviously follow the jump scene back home a fair bit. Do you still follow it in Australia as well? Like, do you get into the jump scene here?
Yeah, big time. I while I was working for Kieran, he was away, and I bought Big Blue for a client of his, and he won the Gallywood, and I believe he's going to the Grand Annual this year. I love it. Probably, if you said what would I rather be, you'd nearly say a jumps trainer. I love it that much, but you can't do it here. It's obviously not in Sydney, and it's only small in Victoria, but yeah, I still get a big kick out of watching it, and I'll be certainly watching Warrnambool Carnival this year.
No plans to get one ready for the bull?
But it's something I probably not right now. Is focus on sort of what we've got at the moment. But once we're a little bit more established, it's not something I'd rule out. I think Gay's probably the only Sydney trainer sort of recent times that's still got jumpers, but she's obviously got a base down in Melbourne, which probably makes it easier. But I think, you know, you haven't got any trials here, so you've got to jumps trial them. So you'd have to travel them down from Sydney to trial them. There'd be a bit of logistics to work out, but yeah, certainly something I wouldn't rule out.
There must be a lot of similarities between jumps racing and racing sprinters and stayers and things like that. What are the main similarities and you know, things which you do differently?
Well, I suppose the similarities are just fit, you know, having them as fit as you can and as sound as you can. But having said that, they are quite a different way of training. In Australia, in particular, I think it's very hard to train a jumps horse. I think the guys that do it well, it's a credit to them really, because you compare it to back in England and Ireland, which is where the best jumps racing are, and they're training on rolling hills, uphill all the time. Whereas here, you know, the facilities at the tracks are, you're on a, you know, essentially a sort of 2,000 meter tight turn the whole way. So by getting miles into horses' legs on tracks like that, you're turning all the time, and you're at more risk of injuring them doing that sort of training over distance than you would be up hills. So, you know, a lot of the jumps trainers now use the treadmill, or the flat trainers are using them as well. But, you know, I know in particular, sort of my experience with Kieran, who's probably the best jumps trainer in Australia, is you have to put a hell of a lot more work into them than you would with a flat horse. And yeah, a lot of that is done on the treadmill, you know, purely because, you know, we lack the facilities to train them in Australia unless you had your own private facility, I suppose.
Yep. So tell us about your time with Gay and with Kieran. What were the kind of things which you learnt, which you've taken into your training career?
Oh, they're both sort of very different trainers, but obviously both very successful. Gay's had a phenomenal career. You know, I learned a lot from her. She's tough, and you know, she's very strict, but I think that works in her favour a lot. You know, no stone is left unturned, and her horses are incredibly fit, and she seems to teach them to have a real will to win, and that starts even at the trials. You know, she's very competitive with them even at trials. So that was very interesting learning that off her. And you know, Kieran's probably a bit more of a relaxed sort of trainer, and probably he uses his races a bit more to get them fit, I suppose. But you know, they're both unique in their own different ways. But you try and pick up things off everyone you work for, and hopefully I've learnt you know, plenty off the two of them to try and take into my own career. Obviously, you put your own spin on things as well, but it's always good to have you know, learnt off. You see what works for those guys, and you try and take that into your own sort of training.
And you spent 4 years with Kieran?
Yeah.
Yep. And what was the point where you thought, you know, I need to go out and do it myself?
It was probably, to be honest, it's probably when boxes became available. I think it's a lot easier probably to attract the right clients when you're training in the city on a city track, but it's very hard to get boxes. You know, Randwick's chock-a-block, Rose Hill's chock-a-block, and you know, at the time, most of the time, Warwick Farms chock-a-block, but there were boxes that came available. So I suppose took the plunge and had the backing of Aquis as well. Were keen to send me some horses as well. So that sort of helps you make that move, knowing you're going to have some support straight away. But it's never an easy. I think any decision like that, it's never an easy time. You know, you're enjoying what you're doing and working in a great team. It's never that easy to break away. But at some stage, I wanted to be training on my own. I didn't want to be an assistant trainer forever. So yeah, I think it was just the opportunity of really when the boxes became available, and I certainly felt ready to do so. I'd had a great grounding.
And how many boxes have you got
now? 53.
Is that a good number for you, or are you looking for more?
Yeah, it's a good number at the moment. We've got quite a few yearlings coming in, so just about to take over another stable. But I don't want to get huge. I think you need to have a reasonably good number to be competitive. You know, ideally I'd like to be a sort of top 10 trainer, but You know, I think I still quite enjoy being hands-on. I don't ride every morning, but I might ride 5 or 6 horses in a week just to have a little feel of them. And certainly when the babies come through, sort of as very late yearlings turning 2-year-olds, I like to have a sit on them. I think if you're too big, it starts to become difficult to do that sort of thing. You know, I trot up every horse every week, and you know, even with 50, it takes a long time to do that. So I just like having a, you know, that hands-on approach. And you know, probably another 20 or 30 would be ideal. I think 80 is a nice number, but yeah, I'm sort of, I suppose, not putting a figure on it at the moment. We're just going through the motions, as it were. And you know, at the moment we're in a position where we can take on more horses, and we've got good staff.
You've got a pretty small but select stable. Must be great to have such backing, like from Aquis, to get horses like Mwanga. That must be huge for a new trainer.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a bit of a surprise, a nice surprise, I suppose you could say. But yeah, he's obviously he's a lovely horse, and you know, he's not the only one. They've sent me several nice horses, and so have a few other clients as well. So I'm just very fortunate, and you know, I certainly won't be taking that for granted. You realise, you know, most of the time, I mean, the main thing with stepping out on your own is that you've gone from working for an elite stable to then thinking you're going to have to be, you know, going to the sales and sort of finding the cheapest horses you can and trying to attract clients. And you've still got to do that. But I'm just fortunate, you know, to have a good base with owners such as Aquis, who have sent me these sort of, essentially, some of them are sort of ready-made horses. They've already performed at that group level. So you've still got to perform with them. They're obviously not robots. You've still got to train them. But the fact that you've got that class of horse there certainly makes life a lot easier, and it means you've got horses in good races. Means your name's getting out there a bit more, and you know, in turn, that then helps attract more clients. So I think that the first couple of years, if I can sort of maintain that sort of support, hopefully it can build from there.
So what's the plan with Mwanga? He's obviously going to the Rosehill Guineas next weekend.
Yeah, he's going to the Rosehill Guineas. I think he'll relish the 2000. Sort of looking at the weather, it's meant to be raining now, but it's not. Don't know what the track will come up. Bar his first start, he's been on sort of firm decks, so that'd be the only unknown if it happened to come up a heavy 10, for example. I know he won his 2-year-old race on a heavy track, but that was a 2-year-old race at the Gold Coast, so you'd imagine the calibre of horse he's become, he's probably going to win that race, whether he handled it or not. So that'd be my only unknown. But other than that, you know, touch wood, so far the horse looks to have come through that race very well. He'll do a piece of work on Saturday and Tuesday, and yeah, he'll be set to head to Rosehill.
And the blinkers were on last Saturday. Was that key for him? And they'll stay on, I guess? Yeah,
they definitely stay on. It was probably always going to be the plan to put them on. I didn't want to wear them first up, but sort of thought I might be wearing them second up. And yeah, Tommy felt that he never, in all of his races, he looks like he's hit a bit of a flat spot, including in the CS Hayes, but he felt that he actually never really hit a flat spot with those blinkers on. I think they probably helped. But the beauty with him, he's very laid back and casual, that I was never worried he'd over travel in them. Obviously, sometimes when you put them on, they can do a little bit too much, but even the step up and trip, I'm not worried about keeping them on. I think they're certainly a help rather than a hinder, that's for sure.
Were you confident last start, or were you sort of thinking the 2000 will be more up his alley?
I've always thought the 2000's going to be more up his alley than the mile, but having said that, he's a horse that doesn't show you much at home, and he hasn't really shown the punters much in his trials either. But his work on the Tuesday before without the blinkers on, I galloped him a couple of times with them on, and I took him off, and he seemed to have just switched on, and it was the best bit of work. Like, it was a very good piece of work, and he hadn't done a good piece of work since I'd had him. He's just sort of works as well as he needs to. So yeah, that made me have a spring in my step for the rest of the week. I thought we were going to be a good chance. I thought the Kiwi horse was going to be probably quite hard to beat, but I knew the track was going to be dry, and I know that our fella sort of handles that sort of firm decking. So you see the barrier come out and you think, oh, great, barrier 2. You always want to draw in. But I did, at the back of my mind, I did think, I wonder if he'll end up getting cluttered and needing room. And in the end, that's what probably cost us.
What was Tommy's assessment after the race? I know you've built a great association with him since starting out. What did he say about the run?
He said, sorry, I dropped my rein. No, he didn't. he didn't even tell me he did. I watched the replay.
You'd be livid if that was his first word.
He said, I've only done that twice in my career. Oh, it was a pretty important time.
Yeah, not a Group 1, hopefully.
It didn't make a difference. I don't think. He was a bit gutted, but he's that's the great thing with Tommy. He never gets down, really. He's always a very positive person, and he's good to have on because, you know, he says to you before the race, you know, we're going to win this. We're a great chance. As he's walking over to get on the horse, you know, he's always confident, and he summed it up as bring on 2 weeks' time. So, look, he's looking forward to riding him as much as I'm looking forward to getting him there, I think.
And he's nom for the Derby, the Doncaster, the Queen Elizabeth. What distance do you think is going to be his optimum? 2,000 or?
Yeah, good question. I think the Doncaster would be a great race to win, 49 kilos, but you're coming back in trip, which is probably a negative. It's only a couple of weeks to get him sort of freshened back up. You've got the Queen Elizabeth, which obviously is probably the most competitive of the 3 to go to, but you might entertain it if it was going to be a dry track, because a lot of the main hopes are wet trackers. And then, of course, you've got the Derby. So, you know, the Derby would be a great race to win as well. He'd obviously have to look like he's motoring through the line at 2,000 to entertain that. But yeah, it's sort of amazing game, really. You've got a horse ready to run in 10 days' time, and you've no idea what distance he's going to go to after that. But, you know, it's going to be a mile, 2,000 or a mile and a half. So we'll just see. We'll take it one race at a time, and hopefully he can, you know, if he can win the Rosehill Guineas, that'd be great. And if he pulls up well, we'll have to make a decision on which direction we head.
How special would it be to get a Group 1 in your first year of training?
Oh, it'd be incredible. It's what I think all of us trainers strive to do, is to train Group 1 winners. And there's a lot of trainers that haven't been fortunate enough to have the right sort of horse to do so. So you sort of put a bit of pressure on yourself. I know I've got an extremely good horse in the stable, and I know he's capable of winning one. So you do need all the stars to align. You need everything to fall into place. So we'll do the best job we can this week and next to get him there. And I think, yeah, if you can pull it off, it'd mean a lot, and it'd mean a lot to the team as well. You know, we're all quite a young team, and they're all working pretty hard, and they're all very passionate and enthusiastic. So I think results like that just really help to keep the morale high, and yeah, keeps everybody happy.
Do you think he's your best chance to win your first Group 1?
Yeah.
Yep. All right. Next question. Prague on Saturday at Flemington. He wasn't as unlucky as Moanga, but he didn't have much luck, did he?
No. It's funny. Tommy dropped the rein and Mick D dropped the whip. It's great.
It's not ideal when you had your first Group 1 winners.
He only dropped at the last few strides, but his run was enormous. He's a colt that I've got a lot of time for. He's very talented. I thought we were a good chance drawing out as wide as we were. It sort of seemed to be the place to be so far, but as it turned out, the first 3 home were all sort of down the middle part of the track. So whether there was a track bias or whether they were better than us on the day, who knows? But the only thing with him is he sort of got into this habit. He was pretty quick away as a 2-year-old, but when he turned 3, he just got into a bit of a bad habit of being slow away. And it's pretty hard to rectify that once they get into that habit. It's one of those fine lines. You can do a bit of work with them at home out the gates, but sometimes it can have the adverse effect. So it's just finding that balance of trying to get them out the gates quicker without sort of actually making a fuss about it.
Yep.
But, you know, he's on the back foot. He jumped slow again, and he was, you know, at the tail of the field. But interestingly, Mick said he felt like he was at his top the whole way. But then was, you know, very, very strong through the line. And I think he ran some very quick sectionals. So we'll see whether we get him up to 14, you know, up in trip a bit, where he can travel a bit better, and perhaps being a bit slow away won't be as big a deal. but he's got a brilliant turn of foot. He's got a pretty high cruising speed, really, and there's a few options for him. We'll see how he goes, but possibly head towards, if he's going well, an all-age stakes. He's obviously got to step up a lot to go to a weight for age sort of race, but he's a valuable colt. He's well bred, and if he could pick off a race like that, it would sort of secure him at stud. But a race at the back of my mind would be the Stradbroke, 1400 handicap conditions. So if we could get him into a race like that on the minimum, I think he'd be extremely competitive.
Will he race next week, do you think, or?
He'll hold a nomination for the Derby Munro. That's a possibility, and then you've got races such as the Arrowfield. There's the listed South Pacific, but you'd like to pick off a group race with him rather than a listed race. But it's just it's not actually a great program for a horse like him. You know, he wasn't on that Guineas path. I'm not saying he won't get a mile, but I just didn't feel like he was the sort of horse to be getting a mile this early on in his prep. You know, and he may end up not being quite sharp enough for some of those really speedy 1200 meter 3-year-olds. So, you know, I think his ideal trip is 1400, but there's no Group 1 3-year-old 1400, or even Group 2 or 3. There's just not many options for him. So really the only two races are the All Age and the Stradbroke.
Yep. And I'll just touch on a couple of other talented horses you've got in your stable. Queen of Wizardry runs this weekend.
Yeah, Queen of Wizardry. She's a lovely filly. She's always a little bit hard to get a line on because she doesn't show you a lot at home. Doesn't really show you much in her trials either. She probably did surprise a bit the day she won at Eagle Farm, but she stormed home late, and she did exactly the same in the Magic Millions. Her run there was enormous, and she was probably unlucky not to finish a place further forward. She ran fourth. She was probably unlucky not to get third. She got a bit of a check, or 2 checks down the straight, and then she motored past the winner beyond the line. So, you know, she's screaming out for further. We haven't had any options to get her out further yet. This weekend's probably just a sort of starting point for her. I think Mallory probably looks like she'll be pretty tough to beat. But having said that, you know, there's not a whole lot of speed in the race. So she can be that little bit closer and show off that turn of foot that she has got. You know, she could surprise, but her grand final is going to be the Champagne.
And you've also got Wisdom of Water in the stable as well. He's come up from Victoria.
Yeah, Wisdom of Water. He's going to trial on Monday. Just have a soft trial. He's got his quirks. I think they're fairly well known quirks, and he certainly hasn't grown out of them. So, you know, just I suppose learning about him at this stage. So haven't got any set plans with him. If we can get him going as well as the Edmonds did, you know, perhaps a race like the Arrowfield could be for him also. But he might be looking to head up to races up in Brisbane as well. Could be an option for him.
And on Sunday, you overcame the issue of Moanga on Sunday with Equation in the Canberra Guineas. That must have been pretty sweet to get a bit of a redemption after the day before.
Yeah, exactly. He was very good. He's won his last 4. The only defeat he had was on debut against Peltzer. But he's a pretty smart colt. We've always had a lot of time for him. It's a shame we couldn't get him up and going a bit earlier. He just had a couple of little setbacks, but yeah, he's sort of a similar boat to Prague, really. But he'll probably head towards a South Pacific, or possibly a Carbine Club if we decide. He'll get a mile. You'd think off the way he ran the other day, but not in a rush to get him up to that trip. So we might wait for the 1400 meter race over the championships, and then he's another horse as well that could be sort of Queensland Guineas, and then maybe a Stradbroke if he ends up being good enough. But you know, what I'm hoping with him is he's sort of progresses and goes on with it, and is perhaps a horse to really think about for a Golden Eagle next year.
You've got quite a few nominations for the Slipper. Which horses do you think will make it to the race?
At this stage, I don't think we'll have any. The only option left is Queen of Wizardry if she happened to win the Magic Night. It's obviously a ballot exempt race, but not sure we'd run her anyway, backing up sort of this early on in the prep. And I think she's going to have more of a winning chance in a Sires or a Champagne over further. So we'd probably just be running for the sake of it. So had a nice colt that I thought might get there, but he had a setback. And you know, when you've got lots of them in, not many of them make it there. Some years they do, some years they don't. So I think with him, He's going to be a nice horse. He's a horse called Vern. He'll be a nice horse for next year. But yeah, as for the fillies, the rest of them that are in there, I don't think any of them will make it.
You must have quite a few nice babies coming through from Aquis.
Yeah, there's some nice 2-year-olds, and they were obviously pretty busy at the Magic Millions sale, so quite a lot of yearlings. They bought some really well bred ones. So hopefully this time next year we might have a couple of those lining up for the slipper.
And you've also got Holyfield on Saturday as well. Is he on a Doncaster path?
Possibly. Just going to get the first run out of the way and then work out where we head. If he's going well enough, then you'd probably run him in a Doncaster Prelude. He'd need to win that to get in, I believe. But if not, he's probably another horse that would go to a Carbine club and then perhaps look up towards Queensland as well.
And we'll hopefully get this podcast out before tomorrow. You've got Zazu at Kembla. Good chance?
He probably won't go round. It looks a pretty strong 64 to my mind, and he's drawn a bit awkwardly, so we'll probably wait till next week with him.
Yep. And you mentioned Queen of Wizardry running fourth in the Magic Millions. You've got a all-girls syndicate in her?
Yeah, she's all girls, and Lizzie Jelfs is in her as well, so she was pretty happy to pick up a slice of the $325,000 bonus. Yeah, we went and bought another horse that evening, in the evening session after the race. We bought a Smart Missile filly, so she's going to race with all girls as well. And it was a great initiative from Katie Page to get some of the girls involved. And we've certainly noticed a couple of the wives of some owners that have got horses with us have taken interest that perhaps weren't before. They've liked the idea of getting together with some girls and having a bit of fun. So I think it's been a good initiative at increasing ownership.
We had International Women's Day earlier this week. You must be pretty proud of what the girls are achieving in the game.
Yeah, it's incredible. I get asked a lot about how I feel being a girl in the industry, but I'm very fortunate that I don't really feel anything about it. I think it's very equal now, thanks to the way things have changed and to people like Betty Lane and Gay Waterhouse who sort of helped pave the way for all of us. But probably, in recent years, you've seen the likes of Jamie Carr, Rachel King, Kathy O'Hara, really stamp themselves as being top jockeys, not just top female jockeys, but top jockeys. And in particular, you look at Jamie Carr, even Linda Meach, year before last was punching out a lot of winners. And I think it's just good now. Times have changed. A lot of even the big stud farms and what have you are happy to put on. Don't think twice about putting Jamie Carr on just because she's a girl.
She's
they
first
actually
pick
just all want her just because she's good.
Yep, exactly. Awesome, Annabelle. Well, thanks for joining us, and fingers crossed for some more luck with Moanga next Saturday.
Hopefully.
No worries. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
At Winning Edge Investments, our team of highly skilled expert analysts and full-time professional punters review the data, crunch the figures, assess the best betting opportunities, and deliver them to your phone via our app and your email inbox in real time so you profit. Go to www.winningedgeinvestments.com. Look at our membership options. Make your choice and enter the promo code PODCAST to receive a special 25% discount on your first membership just for listening. That's PODCAST in capital letters for a 25% ongoing discount on your first membership. Treat your betting like a business and invest intelligently with Winning Edge Investments.